The third episode of the Frasier reboot demonstrates how awful the original Niles plan is. Moving to Boston presents fresh difficulties for Frasier as he attempts to reestablish both his personal and professional lives. He is mostly left to his own devices to deal with his new situation because he doesn't seem to stay in touch with his old Cheers buddies. Without his brother and confidant Niles around to support him in thinking things through, it will get harder and harder. Unfortunately, David Hyde Pierce declined the invitation despite Kelsey Grammer's invitation. In addition to acting in the revival, she also produces it. The original Frasier was a true ensemble piece despite having a protagonist, something that grew increasingly apparent as time went on. Each supporting character had a unique peculiarity that made them charming, and when all of the characters were combined, they worked incredibly well. But Niles was a definite standout. Pierce did a fantastic job portraying the part, as shown by his several Emmy nominations and victories. He is evidently greatly missed in the new program as a result of this. Though it wasn't a particularly good plan, Paramount Plus already had one if Pierce had agreed to appear. That is demonstrated in Season 3, Episode 3 of the new Frasier. Chris Harris and Joe Cristalli, the co-showrunners, have disclosed their first proposal to include Niles in the Frasier revival. They said that the plot's premise called for Frasier and Niles to manage a black box theater. This seemed like a really good idea, especially given the couple's love of the arts and culture. It would have exposed the brothers to new experiences as business owners, similar to how the original Frasier was marketed as a family comedy to differentiate from Cheers being a workplace show. Martin's passing may or may not have been predetermined in this version, but given that it was the foundation around which it was built, it is likely that the patriarch of the Crane family's passing was already considered to be a part of it. Fans of the original program would have been thrilled to see Niles in any role in the Frasier reboot. However, First Class emphasizes how disastrous Pierce's character's initial idea is. The original plan was for Frasier and Niles to have their own businesses, but the Seattle-based series has already demonstrated why this is a bad idea. Freddie makes fun of his father's admission that he'd like to quit his Harvard teaching job and reminds him of the time he and Niles bought a restaurant and tried to turn it around. After just one night, the project was a failure, prompting them to abandon it. The restaurant project that Frasier and Niles attempted to launch in The Innkeepers wasn't their only unsuccessful joint venture. They had previously attempted to write a book together, but it had failed spectacularly. Although Martin's remarks about his son's inability to get along with one another suggest that this occurred frequently before the events of the old program, this was really a recurring motif in the first season. Given this, it doesn't really add anything fresh to the franchise to see them collaborate to run a black box theater. More significantly, it isn't a viable idea in the event that the program is picked up for a second season. Niles and Frasier making a neutral expression while seated on a couch in Frasier. It's unclear whether Pierce was solely presented with Niles' black box theater story. It is understandable why he rejected it if it was the only choice provided, though. It doesn't provide him anything new to do for the role, as was already said. It doesn't necessarily follow that Paramount Plus couldn't have come up with a better plan for Niles to appear in the Frasier reboot, though, just because the original notion was horrible. The production should have concentrated on the brothers coping with the death of their father, since Martin could not have been a part of the new show given John Mahoney's passing in 2018. In contrast to Cheers, the old Frasier is renowned for being able to balance comedy and drama. Despite its subtle humor, it managed to address important subjects. Niles and Frasier are trained as psychiatrists to help people deal with their own problems, but it's different when they have to take their own counsel. An intriguing premise that would involve all three generations of Cranes is re-evaluating their connection with their father in the wake of his death while simultaneously serving as dads to Freddie and David, respectively. In the Frasier revival, none of the original cast members have made a regular appearance. Since they are apparently still all headquartered in Seattle, the transfer to Boston essentially serves as a justification for not including those players. As Lilith and Roz, Ben Newirth and Perry Gilpin are back, but only as guests. Niles won't appear in the Frasier reboot as a result, at least not in the first season. Grammer and his team might approach Pierce once more for a potential appearance, though, should Paramount Plus decides to continue the show for a second season.